About what? Your struggles?
Well, I mean, we're talking about transformation, right, today?
Yeah, you said we're going to be laughing. Oh, you said you don't want to talk about your struggles and me laugh.
Well, I'm going to be laughing now because you got me
Oh.
laughing.
Yeah, that's the vibe.
Yeah.
All right, we're
All right,
live.
we're live.
So.
Yeah.
All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to C.H.A.I Together. I am your host and founder, Pretty Bidet. You are tuning in for your cup of courage, hope, and imagination today. Today, I have with me Mr. Andrew Clarke. How you feeling?
I'm feeling good. You got me laughing, so I'm feeling good.
We keep it real. So do you feel like a farmer?
You know, making
Okay.
fun of my shirt, so a little bit, a little bit.
Oh, hi, Tone. Okay.
What's going on?
All right. So let me tell the viewers about you because we have a limited amount of time today. So Andrew Clarke is the creator of Expanding Wallet, the home for empowerment. He leads people to see that it's possible for them to create their own roadmap to financial success. Andrew has been increasing his own financial knowledge since he was 15 years old, and his story is inspired by his school teacher and his personal life. And you also have a workshop coming up on Wednesday. Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct. On credit, actually.
On credit. So you want to start telling us about that, and then we'll dig into other stuff?
Yeah. So, I mean, when you look at credit, for instance, a lot of people, I think, feel maybe a negative vibe around credit because a lot of people get in debt, credit cards and things like that. But for me, with what I learned pretty much in my teens, early 20s, it has actually helped me understanding credit to get out of debt, which I think, for a lot of people, that's what they really need, is to have that understanding. And so I am going to be having a credit repair specialist, my friend Marcin. You might know him as well. And he's going to be in there. Yeah. So he's a credit repair specialist. So he's going to be talking about, kind of how do you build your credit up. And then I'm going to take it a step further, and I'm going to show you strategies on how I've used credit to actually pay off 5-figure debt multiple times in my life. So one thing in there in my bio that a lot of people usually highlight, though, is that by 26, I had paid off all my bad debt. And so that's what I'm going to share, is like, how did I do that in about 2 years? And that strategy, it's definitely a strategy that has a couple steps to it. So I'm going to break it down so that anybody who's in there, they'll really understand then how they can apply that and hopefully, start to eliminate debt and save money, more money.
Yeah. And I just want to highlight the fact you mentioned bad debt. So let the viewers know how there's good debt and bad debt. And from my understanding, good debt helps you build your credit. Bad debt is just the accumulation that you're unable to pay, with the minimum payments and all.
It's not necessarily even that. It's not necessarily building credit one way or another when I say bad debt, good debt. So I'm glad that you kind of asked about that. So for instance, when I say good debt, so when I was 24, the week I turned 24, I purchased a duplex. So that was my first investment property. And so when I say good debt, right? So when I say good debt, to me, it's an asset, right? So a property, but even if I go a little step further and I'd say something that provides you with cash flow. So on a monthly basis, right? My duplex, someone's paying rent, right? So that's providing a cash flow. Yeah. So to me, that's good debt, right? So I owe money to the bank on that mortgage, but I'm getting money from the renter. And then the bad debt is any liability where, it's going to depreciate. So a car, right? That would be college student loan, big liability.
Thank you.
Right? Big liability, right? So
over 100K. Yeah, it's about to be over 100K for me.
Yeah. So you better be the first one in there then on Wednesday. It's at 8 p.m. Central Time. So, okay. So I'll make sure you're going to be in there. We're going to have to talk for real.
Wow. So, share with us. So did you always know you were going to, since you were 15, you were studying the finance aspect. Did you know that, you were going to be an accountant, or like, what did you want to do before?
I'm not even an accountant now. It really had nothing. It had nothing. Like, no, when I was growing up, I mean, I wanted to be a race car driver. And then at that age, I actually wanted to be a doctor. So what had happened was I just grew up. So my mom, we're an immigrants. So I was born in Jamaica. My mom came here in her 30s, and I was about like 3. We lived in Florida. But basically, growing up, I had just seen her work like a crazy amount of hours. And she knew about working hard and saving money. And she worked hard, not just to support our internal family, but we had we had relatives back home in Jamaica that couldn't support themselves. So her one income was supporting 8 different people. And so I'd see her work usually over 100 hours a week. And she did that for years.
Wow.
And it has, I mean, if you think of, I mean, I've had weeks where I've worked hard, right? And you think
Yeah.
about the toll that it has on your body. And I just saw, you know, how it affected my mom. And so the real driving force was she didn't have time to learn anything else, really. I mean, it was just working all the time. And so for me, it was just like, you know, what would happen if she got sick? What would happen if she couldn't work? Like, she had multiple jobs, but if you can't physically be there, you're not going to make any money, right? And Warren Buffett has this saying where he says, if you don't find a way for you to make money while you sleep, then you'll work till you die, right? And so that was really the driving force. And so it wasn't necessarily that I even really cared that much about money. I was just thinking about the lifestyle that I was seeing with my mom. And so we didn't have an understanding of investments, right? And so I started to read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and that really opened my eyes up, because my mom was a big believer in getting your education and going to school, and that's what she did. When she came here, she basically started everything over from the bottom and then paid her way through school. And so, you know, what stood out to me in that book was when I read, he said, my poor dad would say, we can't afford it. And my rich dad would say, how do we afford it? And I was like, Mom, you sound like the poor dad in this story. You know, I was saying we can't afford stuff. So that was really what was kind of like the starting point. And so I ended up getting into real estate. My mom actually became a real estate agent because that book talked heavily about the
Wow.
advantages of real estate. And so that opened her eyes up. And so she became a part-time real estate agent while
Wow.
still working her full-time job. And then I'm like, behind the scenes, I'm learning a lot about real estate by helping her. And so by 18, I get my license. And then that's right before I go to college. So I'm a real estate agent helping her, going to these investment seminars. And so that's where a lot of the financial knowledge comes from, is all the different like tricks about real estate and then the different things you can do. So I think by the time I was 21, I knew how to get into rentals, flipping properties, even how to flip an RV, how to flip, apartment buildings. There's just a lot of things, right? And so that you have to have great financial knowledge when you get into real estate, because I mean, it's high risk too, right? And so that was really what was the driving force, was really just my mom, right? Seeing that hard work. So that was my purpose for doing that. And when I went to school, like, I mean, looking back on it now, it's kind of ridiculous that I did so much, because I was also pre-med, also going for biomedical engineering. So it's like I had all these things stacked up there. And I did that because, again, it was more of like that purpose was there. And that's what I'm big on, is you gotta have a strong why to get you through the tough times.
Do you still do that? Your old career? Any work in that?
So yeah, so I still do my career while running Expanding Wallet. So, you know, that's it, right? And my purpose right now is, you know, when I saw what happened with the pandemic, and I saw statistics even before the pandemic, I think it was like 48% of Americans were living paycheck to paycheck, right? Then you get hit with the pandemic, and now suicide goes up, right? So people are now giving up hope on their future. And I was like, you know, this is something that I can definitely help with, especially from the financial. And I really, you know, for me, it's deeper than the financial, because one thing too is when my mom was working so hard, you know, you take away then your time. That's your greatest asset. It's the time where you can go after, you know, whatever those big dreams are. And so my mom has some great, I mean, she's great at writing, she's great at speaking. You know, I'm not naturally a good speaker, but I've seen my mom get up and just speak off the top of her head and have a room in tears, you know.
Wow.
But she had that ability. But, you know, again, it's just, you know, that working mentality sometimes. And when you don't know any better, it can really drain you.
I think she has a lot of pain behind that. That's why she's able to move people, because all the hours she put in, right? And is she
Could be
still
that
speaking?
too.
What is she doing now? She's still speaking today?
She's a nurse. Yeah, so
Oh,
she's a
wow.
nurse. She actually, ironically, now she did. So she did for a long time, she didn't have jobs where it had retirement benefits. And then
Mm,
eventually she started getting into like, she had like financial advisors come along. But then she decided, well, why don't I start educating myself? And a group approached her. And so she's into, I think it's more of insurance, okay, side
mhm,
of things. But, you know, you can put away for insurance and that actually can be part of your retirement. You can pull from that. And
mhm.
so she has learned a lot from that and also learned like, hey, some of these guys who were saying they were helping me, they weren't, you know, as far as what they were selling me for insurance products and retirement planning.
You have an idea that comes to mind for you because, finances and mental health, they're both very important because it affects your mental health, right? For your mom, it was the
Mhm.
time. But right now, I feel like a great idea for you would to also speak, through expanding wallet to organizations, even mental health organizations, how when people are leaving the facilities and an outpatient, inpatient, whatever it may be, that do they have their finances in check, like who's responsible, like who has power of attorney, and those things. I feel like it can even go deeper. What do you think? Do you see
Oh
yourself doing
yeah. I mean, I think that's really important. I know a little bit about, you know, some of those things on that side. I don't know a ton, but the reason
that?
I
Yeah.
know a little bit, my ex was in social work, and so you know those were some of the programs she had talked about, like through the county and what they offer. But I do think that is important, and even when you talk about finance, right? I mean, and mental health, right? That's stressful, right? If your
Yeah.
money's not in order, I mean, that's a big mental stress on you at all times. And
Mhm.
even when I talk about those 2 years where I was paying off debt, I mean, I was broke during that time because I was putting so much money towards getting out of debt. And you know, I would pray that my car wouldn't break down on me. I drive my old car from high school. I didn't buy a new car right away. I purchased a duplex, and then I just
Mm.
drove that old car. And I remember my girlfriend at the time, we were going to one of her coworkers' house, and she says to me, she's like, you know what? We're gonna take my car because at that time my car was starting to rust, right? But I mean, that's what you got to do sometimes. You really got, and I've said this before, you know, don't put your pride in front of your purpose, right?
Mm.
And so I was okay with driving the busted down car because to me it was way more important that I get out of debt and I have that
Wow.
financial freedom to do the things I wanted to do.
Wow. So you weren't ashamed to show who you are and where you are in life, right?
No, I mean, and one of the things I did at 15, probably more important than even studying finance, but I would actually read books
Mm,
on successful people, and I don't just mean like financially successful, but like I
mhm.
read Gandhi's autobiography, W.E.B. Du Bois, and so you just realize, you know, you have to really, really, really hone in on what it is that you want in life and go after that, regardless of what people are going to say about you or how they're going to judge you.
Wow. I'm thinking about myself here, what I'm about to do next. So I want you to share more about, the workshop. So when did Expanding Wallet start? Was that before the pandemic?
So yeah, so it was actually, so I had actually started working on it years before. I had the
Mm,
idea for years before, but I had my own um, issues come up. I was started another company to flip houses, and our first deal went terrible. Got a bad contractor, and
wow.
then I even had bought the website domain, and then yeah, if you get into a deal and you have a bad contractor who screws you over, it is so hard to find a good one after that. No one wants to touch it. And so it was like a 2 year nightmare. It's supposed to be 2 months, but anyway, so I had that idea from them, and then I just was literally just putting my ideas down, just in files. So by the time I actually started it last year in July is when I picked it back up and I started building out the website, and we officially launched last year in September. And
Mm.
so, you know, I had about 100 files already in my computer, just with like ideas on what I wanted to do, kind of a business plan. So, and that's what I always say to people is like, you know, if you have an idea, just keep working. Like, even if you're like, I won't be able to do this now, you know, keep putting those ideas down because at some
Mm.
point you might turn that switch on.
Wow, I really like that. That even if not now, it may click later for you at another time in life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that. That
Yeah.
can definitely, it's definitely
My,
prominent. Yeah.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say one more
Mhm.
quick thing is like with
Mhm.
expanding wallet, I mean, my mission is really to help people go after their big dreams, their big visions. Because I believe there's three reasons that we don't. And they
Mhm.
are that you don't believe you have enough money, you don't believe you have enough time, and you really just don't believe in yourself. And so that's
Damn.
why I'm not just doing the financial articles, I'm not just doing the workshops. I'm putting out
Mm,
interviews out there with people who've transformed their life to show people like, hey, this is how they did it. This is what's possible, right? And that's why I said like me reading those books and or audio books and learning about people who were leaders and who were successful, that definitely
mm.
gave me confidence in myself to go after what I wanted.
Wow. So, do you know how much? Are you able to share with us how much debt you've paid off of your own over the
Well,
years?
back then when it was during that time, it was over 20 grand in debt. So
Wow.
during those two
For the two
years,
years.
yeah, yeah, and I mean that's when I was making the least because I had just gotten out of
Mhm.
college, and I was just starting out my job. I was fortunate that I didn't have a ton of college debt, but when
Mhm.
I bought the property, I had to take on debt in order to renovate it and get the rent prices up. So that was and yeah, that was really where the heavy debt came from.
So, when is it you started to have the strategies of how to pay off debt? In better
That came
ways,
through
right?
that came through real estate. Yeah,
Oh
that
wow.
came through the real estate investment courses. So the big difference is that real estate agents are not trained to be investors. You get your real estate license, you're
Mm,
licensed to be an agent of the broker that you work for to sell
mhm,
properties or buy properties for people, right? To help them buy
mhm.
properties. That's different than being an investor. And so me getting that license at 18, that didn't make me an investor, right? I didn't have the knowledge. So that was why I ended up going to workshops. So basically, everything that I'm doing now is kind of
Mm,
a reflection of what got me to this point, right? So
mhm,
if people come to the workshop, right, they should walk away with the understanding of, wow, I can do that, right? And everything that I've done is actually easier now than before. So that's why I'm like looking at this like every year the number of people who are living paycheck to paycheck keeps going up. Now it's at
mm.
58%, right? And
Wow.
I'm like the technology is so much better and the barrier for entry is lower, almost none in some cases. And so I'm like if people actually understand what's possible now, they should I mean there really should be very little debt or living paycheck to paycheck.
Hmm. Yeah, people live above their means.
Well, that's part of it, right?
So,
And
yeah.
I'll share a story. I'm gonna probably share this story in the workshop. I'll probably end with it. But
Mm,
what I say is again, like you got to have a strong why because
mm.
that's what's really gonna change your mindset and your discipline is gonna be there because let's say you're gonna go to medical, you're gonna go to school, and whatever
I
type
hate
of school
you.
it is,
How are you gonna tell people?
but you're gonna go to school.
It's okay.
And so
Yeah.
look, so you're not going to waste a lot of money right now, right? If you know you're going to
Uh,
go to school, you're probably not going to be blowing on some stuff. You're probably going to be less likely to
I
blow
will
it
have
on stuff.
time. I'll be in clinicals every day.
Right. But
Yeah.
I mean leading up to it right
Yeah.
now, right? Like
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
probably
yeah.
not
I
going to be
know.
because of that.
Mhm.
And so I'll kind of share a story about that.
Yeah.
But when you have that purpose, right? Because like even me, like, I used to like uh, I love like nice cars, you know what I mean? Shoes,
Mhm.
all that stuff. But during that time when I was focused on paying off that debt, like I was not
Mhm.
accumulating more of it. And I think that part of it is again kind of you have kind of how you were raised, right?
Mhm.
And so I was fortunate enough, my mom was big on saving, so that wasn't necessarily a problem. But I think the bigger piece is the lack of knowledge, right? And so once you have that knowledge and you have like kind of a bigger vision for yourself that you're working towards, I think
Mhm.
that some of that kind of living above your means will kind of dissipate.
Wow, I really like that because the view that I thought you may take on that is that it's not even necessarily that now. It's just people can't even afford rent with other payments together because they don't make enough in the jobs. That too, it's not necessarily always
Mhm.
the spending, right? It's just
Right.
like you actually don't
Absolutely.
even earn enough. Like your job that maybe you even have the degree and you still don't earn enough, like in this economy.
Well, absolutely. And I think
Yeah.
though the flip side of that I see though, and this comes back to all these opportunities, is I've also never seen it easier to make money. Right? And that's
That's
because of the
true.
internet and some of the things available. And so
Yeah.
I'm working on a book where I'm gonna, talk
Yeah.
about that. And it's a fictional book because I wanted to kind of keep it short. I didn't want to go through my whole life right now. But but I mean, it takes the strategies that I've used, right? And I apply it to a situation where, kind of like I said, what would have happened if my mom had gotten sick, right? And now
Wow.
and what
Yeah.
would that have been like? So that's really, this story is a fictional story of what it could have been like if that happened. But with
Mm.
everything available, like, how do you get out of that debt, right? And so that's really the premise for the book. And so, I'm going to basically dive in and just show you how you get out of debt if that happens. So again, I think that I agree with you. Like, yes, what we're seeing right now with inflation going through the roof, and I don't know that we hear enough about it, but I talk to people who are in construction, right? The cost of
Mm.
of wood is going up like crazy. I
Wow.
have a friend in roofing, right? Roofing materials going through the roof. I understand, like, materials for manufacturing, right? They're having shortages because, when COVID hit, a lot of things were
Mhm.
shut down. And so, we were at a shortage of material. So yeah, there things, and I mean, go to grocery stores, right? I feel like when I go to a
Yeah.
grocery store, I'm like, man, this used to be like $100 worth of groceries. Now it's costing me like 150. So yeah, it's tough. I mean, that part is really tough.
Mm. Yeah, I experienced that myself when I had to pay for all my own stuff. Yeah. I I wanna ask you about your personal life. Could we touch on that briefly? About your past?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So when you got divorced, how hard of a hit was that for you? Like financially, did you have any like suffering from that?
Um, yeah, a little bit.
Mhm.
It wasn't too bad, honestly. We were only married for a year, so because of that short amount of time, and we
Mhm.
both had jobs, we both were in I would say, a pretty good financial place. I actually showed her this technique that I'm going to talk about on Wednesday. So
Well, wow.
she showed off her college student loans. Yeah, so she was in a good spot, and then she actually she decided that she didn't want to rent, and she purchased
Mm.
a townhouse. And actually, I thought, I'm not really cool with like random people in my house and doing like Airbnb, but we had done it once. We had done it
Mhm.
once, and she liked the idea of it, and so she bought a place, rented out one bedroom of it was 3 bedroom, 2 bathroom, rented out one of the bedrooms, and then Airbnb the other, and so was covering her entire mortgage and had cash coming in. So I thought that was pretty clever of her. But
Yes.
for me, as far oh, go ahead.
No, I was like, yes, because I'm considering that as well in the future to do that. Airbnb is on the rise.
Yeah,
So,
it's I like the idea of it. I just
mm,
if I were to do it, I would probably do when I went to Florida on a trip, and I booked the Airbnb. The guy actually built
mm,
an entire room with a bathroom, and then it went out to
mhm.
his had a separate door to his backyard where he
Wow.
had a pool. And so if you did his Airbnb, you had access to his pool, and everything was separate, and it had a electronic key code. So I'm like,
Mhm.
that I wouldn't mind having, but it's like if I don't know you and you're in my house, that feels weird.
Yeah, it's your personality. I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
Maybe if it's a separate house, then yeah, not your own that you're living in.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
for me with the divorce, it wasn't necessarily a financial thing. It was more of, I guess, like a mental of, what do I want to do going forward with my life, as far as I felt like there were things during that time where I was being held back, and it was, I guess too, I wasted some time afterwards too.
What age was that? So that was after you had already learned the strategy. So you had gotten better with money at this point, right? After you paid the 20,000 off.
This is way after that. I was
Yeah.
I was 30 when we got divorced.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, do you share your age? I'm just kidding.
yeah,
Oh,
I'm 32 now.
wow. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the viewers about you?
Well, the one thing that you had that I think we had talked about, me talking about on here, and because I know you talk a lot about mental health, and the one thing that really happened that I would say that I've never talked about actually publicly, but I know, exclusive, right? But when I was in college and I was doing all those things, the pre-med, the engineering degree, and then also going to those investment workshops, my time
Mhm,
was really tight. And I had a class that we call in college the weed 'em out classes. So those are like your really tough classes where a lot of people will tend to drop out, right? And they'll either leave college or switch degrees. And at that time, um, my degree was biomedical engineering. I graduated, but um,
mhm,
I had this class where it was called cell biology. You had a biology book, an entire textbook. You had to read that on your own, and you get tested on the chapters. But he never talked about that in class. He talked about the engineering part. So if you think of a cell has like electricity through it. It has different concentration levels depending on where you are in the cell. So that's called concentration gradient. And so you had to go to class and you learn about that stuff, and then you get tested on that as well. So it was like two classes in one, and I wasn't keeping up with all of the what was coming ahead. And I looked one day and I realized, oh my gosh, we've got a quiz and a test in that same class, like the same class. And I had two other classes with stuff, and
mhm,
just I couldn't like fathom how I was gonna like get ready for this quiz. Like I was just like, I'm gonna fail because I didn't feel like I had enough time to read that entire chapter. And so for me growing up, even though I wasn't great in school when I was young, my one like what I would say like superpower was my memory. Like
mm,
I could remember things really good. And so even though like when I was young, I was terrible with reading and English at that time, but I had a great ability to remember, so I could do great on spelling tests. Well, I think like I had a mental breakdown because I would read this thing, but it felt so pointless because I'm not going to be able to get through this. And so at some point, like something cracked, I don't know, like mentally, because I couldn't remember anything. Like I would literally read this thing and I couldn't tell you what it said 5 seconds later. And that was the only time I had ever, went and saw a like school counselor. And the
mm,
counselor just said, this happens to everyone at some point. You get to a breaking point, and she's like, you'll be okay. And I mean, I guess it calmed me down, but it didn't really it didn't really help, right? And so that week I go in kind of just thinking, well, I'm just gonna fail this. And the teacher makes an announcement, and he's like, guys, I made a mistake on the schedule. I totally didn't realize I put a quiz and a test in the same week, so I'm just gonna move that to the other week. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so, yeah, I had to then actually, like, it didn't come back. Like, my memory never came back to that level. And so I had to, yeah, I mean, this is crazy, right? And so I had to teach myself a new way to learn. And so I started just remembering back to a teacher. I think it was a psychology class, and he just said, there's different ways to learn, and if you can activate more senses, right? And so I was just thinking about like audio. And so instead of like writing out note cards and trying to memorize that way visually, I just started reading like the important things off. And when I went to class between classes, I would actually just listen, right? And so I'm increasing the frequency now of things because before I could read it once, maybe twice, and I'd have it in my head. But now I'm actually listening to this thing like 100 times, right, in a day because I'm just going between classes listening. I wasn't listening to music anymore. And so
mhm.
that was, what got me through. And I did go for the hardest degree too at the U of M. It had a 54% dropout rate. So it was never like easy, especially at that point. So I definitely understand your, pain when you talk about school being tough. And so that was my struggle. And I always tell people, don't give up, find a way to win because, if you have a strong purpose for it, you're probably meant to do it, but it's your journey. got to keep fighting.
Yeah, and you have to you have to choose the major that's best for you, not what your family wants, things like that. Because if you chase the
Yeah.
money, it's gonna be really, really hard for you to like do the material. Like, because when I was speaking, about the program, I was like, what would make someone passionate about studying this part of the body, right? Like for
Yeah.
speech pathology. But it's the fact that either they had a speech pathologist, they have some family, some kind of personal connection with a communication disorder. And that's mental health based as well. Because if you can help someone with this, you help their mind. So everything is for our mental health. But two things come to mind: how you went to the counselor and how it was normalized to be so stressed out during school and have a mental breakdown. Oh, that's normal. It
Yeah.
should not be normalized. Like that is not an okay thing for someone to go through.
No.
Because like you said, your memory was not as sharp anymore because it had so much like it's submerged. It had so much like pressure that you like exploded basically. And I think
Yeah.
um mental breakdowns like people tend to have occasionally like over the years. Like I've heard of that. I don't know too much about those. I've seen it in that show, All of Us, or like This Is Us. Yeah, the show This Is Us, where the one gentleman, he has one like in his office space, but then someone comes and helps him. So they're very serious, just like panic attack when you're hyperventilating. Like it's a serious
Yeah.
thing to happen to you. And I don't, have you had more since then, or that was just that one time?
No, just that one time. But honestly, I've
Yeah.
there's an app that I was using too for a while because some of it too when it comes to memory is probably just practice over time and challenging yourself. So
Hmm.
I did work on developing, like improving my memory again. It, like I said, I mean, to the level where it was at, it wasn't like, I mean, I could memorize like 10-digit numbers just like that, like look at them for a
Yeah.
second and recall them. So it is what it is. I think like
Yeah.
at the
Does
same
it make
time,
you?
I think, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah. I was like, does it still make you a little bit sad? It's a little bit sad to hear about that.
No,
Yeah.
I think it doesn't
Mm.
necessarily make me sad because I think sometimes I could get away with procrastination when I was in college, especially the
Oh,
first year or
yeah.
two. And so, I think it kind of was like a hit, like, hey, you can't be procrastinating anymore, start things early.
Mhm.
And so it doesn't hold me back now. I think my memory is probably like average, maybe slightly
Yeah.
above average, maybe slightly below, but it doesn't bother me. I'm still able to get things
Yeah.
done pretty
It's
effectively.
like you
So
matured onto the next chapter. Like that was for that time frame when you were as that young. Now you're older, and your memory
yeah.
is better than mine, I believe. I also wanted to say you didn't go to your professor to be like, "Hey, these two are on the." It's because you were just expecting so much from that class anyway, right?
Exactly. And that
Like you're like,
particular
"This is hard. It's supposed to be this way."
Yeah, that particular professor, he was the one who he was actually my faculty advisor. And the first
Wow.
time we met, he says to me, that this is the hardest degree at the university and it has the 54% dropout rate. And he did say one thing that, I always remember. And he said, in order to be successful, you have to understand what it takes to be successful. And I had no clue what it takes to be successful. So he's like, you just have to work as hard as you can, and once you figure out like, okay, this is what it takes to get like an A,
Hmm.
then you keep working at that level. And so I thought that was actually pretty profound, right?
Mm.
Because how many times do we do something, and I always tell people, like, if I'm doing something for the first time, right, like building Expanding Wallet, doing the website stuff, like I had no clue about any of that, right? It's hard for me to tell you it's going to take me an hour. Like you might say, like you might be like, hey, I've been working on C.H.A.I Together. It took me, that usually just takes me an hour, right? But if I've never done it and I go in there, right, I'm going to tell you, okay, it should take me an hour. It probably take me 3 hours, right? It might even take me the entire day because I've never done it. And so that's what I kind of realized from what he was saying. And
Mm.
I always take that to heart, right? And that's why I give like 100%, and maybe it's still going to take me like another day or two, but that's the growing pain, right, of starting anything
Wow.
new.
Yeah, and I like learning new things. The major that I chose, like it's new to me. What you chose, was that new to you, or you already knew things on it?
Oh, my major? No,
Yeah,
that was so
new to
when
you.
I was in, so I said like I was bad in school when I was younger, but there was a turning point. Special ed teacher
Hmm.
definitely changed my life around
Oh
reading. And
yeah.
yeah, and so that was, I mean, I don't know if that really has to do with mental health, but I was really slow as far as like when it came to reading. And just working with her, she really helped me like not only develop my reading ability, but help me understand what was important. And it wasn't how fast I could read.
Mm-hmm.
It was being able to take away what the author was saying, right? That
Mm-hmm.
was the key. And I think that's why, like 2 years after working with her, I was then reading 3 years ahead of the average
Wow.
student, or what they had expected to be average. And again, it wasn't necessarily
Wow.
my reading speed, it was just the ability to read something one time and understand the underlying meaning, and then, go through those standardized tests and answer it. And so after working with her, I became a straight A student. Math, science, I got awarded, top student of the year in those, in
Mm.
chemistry and physics. And so, I really love those, and that's why I chose an engineering degree. But, the other thing I was talking about was I was pre-med. So I thought I was going to be a doctor. I had done some emergency room volunteering, so I had seen what it was like to be in the emergency room. It just seemed like that schedule was too hectic for me. So I was like, okay, I'm going to just be a family practice doctor. And I had always gone and seen my doctor every year. So I'm like, I know what that's like, right? So I go and shadow my doctor. So I go and shadow my doctor when I'm pretty much done with my pre-med classes. And I had gotten A's, A minuses. So I was like doing great in the classes. I go and shadow him, and I'm like, I don't want to do this. I didn't realize how much the doctor had to tell people to quit smoking, quit drinking, you got to lose weight. And he just, he was telling me like it was just me and him. He's like, I've been telling these guys this for like 10 years. And I was like, you know what? Like, this isn't for me. And just like you said, you have to be willing to be honest with yourself, and then, tell your family, tell everybody who's been talking about it, that this isn't for me. And here's why, And so I had to kind of search for what I wanted to do for a career. And so I
Wow.
eventually landed on being an IT consultant, and that's what I do now.
Wow. Well, I feel you'd be a great doctor if you were. Like, I can see you as like med also, but I feel like there's a
I
lot of
mean,
people in the world who would fit into different fields. Like, most people would do
yeah,
well in most fields, not just one, because we're not tied down to one. So I can see you in doing
yeah,
different
absolutely.
things.
I think for me, it just came from like, at that time, it was like, what do I really want? What do I really want to
Mhm.
do? Like, what is fun for me? And for me at the time, the number one thing, honestly, was traveling. I was like, I
Mhm.
love traveling. And so, I took a job that would allow me to travel to different client sites all over the world, honestly. And so
Yeah.
that was number one. Then number two was I like solving complex problems. And not that a family doctor doesn't solve
Mhm.
complex problems, they definitely do. And then the third was that I wanted to work with a team of like really like
Mhm.
intelligent people to solve these tough problems. And I guess I just felt like, what I saw shadowing him, because that's what it was. It was, I went from thinking of what it was like because of just being his
Mhm.
patient all those years, to actually shadowing him, following him around for 2 days. And that was what really opened my eyes. And that's why I tell people, young people, before you go to college, or as early as you can, if you can't get an internship, shadow someone. Like, get as
Mhm.
much real world experience in that job as you can,
That's
right?
right.
Because I mean, those 4 years, 5 years, whatever it takes, being a doctor, right? We're talking many, many years of your life, a lot of debt. Imagine if I
Mhm.
had gotten that route, and then I get out and I'm like, oh shoot, like,
Thanks.
I'm not happy. But how many people do you hear that, right? How many people are not happy with the jobs that they're doing, right? They go to a job that they're
Wow.
not happy with. Find a job that you love. That's really, and I have no regret, regardless of what happens
Mhm.
with Expanding Wallet. I still love what I do, and being able to travel as much as I did opened my eyes up to the world and to different people. By the time I was 30, I'd already been on 300 flights.
Wow. I don't know if I've been on that many. And everyone can find you at expandingwallet.com, right?
Yes, yes, yes. And if you go to expandingwallet.com/events, you will see the registration there for the event on Wednesday,
I
and the
will be
details.
doing this.
Yes.
I will
Yes,
be
I will be
doing
bothering
this.
you if I don't see you hopping in.
Hey,
I'm going to be like, hey, where are you? We got to talk about this bet now.
I'll be like,
But
I
no,
can't see it.
yeah, it
Right.
will be. No, I mean, it is really, this is really like a life-changing event for people, because, there's so
Wow.
much debt. And I really feel like, unfortunately, with kind of the consumer driven society that we live in, that it feels like, if you don't get something right now, you're losing. And
Right.
so we get accustomed to being in debt. Like, it's almost like it's normal, right? Like, if I'm
Like
not
the
in debt,
brand
something's wrong with
names.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you
Well,
think
it's
about it,
it
5,000 ads a day that
yeah.
we see. Did you know that? Like, between the social media, between what you see on your apps, and then on, TV, you see 5,000 ads a day, over that, actually, I think now.
Wow. I'll be honest, I did purchase something yesterday, but that's supporting someone who's just starting a business. Like, I would be supporting
Yeah.
you, but
Yeah.
it's something for my self-care. However, it's someone who I also followed, their YouTube for a while, and it's in honor of their mother. So like something meaningful like that. But as in, to shop
Yeah.
online, Amazon, all those things, definitely. And people pull out their credit cards. I don't like seeing large amounts of my credit card. Like, I want to pay
Yeah.
the whole thing off at once. Like, no. But I think it's great. So in the workshop, you're going to be showing strategies of how to better pay off the debt. Is that correct? Is that the right wording for it?
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna be focused on. Like I said, Marcin is gonna focus more on how do you build up your credit, because the main thing is that some of these strategies do require you to have excellent credit. And that was another thing, is like, when I learned that when I was young, that was the driving force why I was really careful with my credit and how I used credit cards, because I knew, hey, when I get this property, that I'm going to need my credit to get out of debt. And that's really why I'm telling you, you learn that strategy regardless of where you are. That might change your whole life and the way you spend, because now you know what great credit can do for you. And a lot of people with excellent credit don't know this stuff either. So it's like you have an 800 credit score, but you're not really utilizing it to its maximum,
Wow. All great stuff.
Yeah.
Any last words? Thank you for your time.
My last words is really just, life can be really tough. I mean, it can really knock you down, but don't ever give up on that big vision for yourself. If that's something that you really feel deep down is for you, go after it with everything you have every single day. That's probably my biggest thing is, I've definitely gone through a lot to get to this point, whether people see it or not, it wasn't handed anything on a golden spoon.
I say that. I say that as well. I'll be saying that more moving forward. One thing I do want to ask, is this a event we pay for? Is this a free event where you're giving some knowledge leading to?
I know this is a free one, and I've been struggling with the doing free events, because a lot of people have been telling me just stop doing it for free. This will probably be the last one, because I think the connotation when something is free, you're not getting any value from it, really.
That's right.
Upsell you on something else.
Let me clarify this.
Yeah, exactly. You will be part of, you will be part of my email list, but again, like, hey, you hit unsubscribe. If you're like, you know what, Andrew's full of garbage, this stuff doesn't make sense. Right? Whatever it is,
Oh,
but,
no.
But I mean, I'm just saying, this is definitely like purpose driven than like profit driven, because.
But when you give your knowledge, people see the genuine, real you, they get to know you, and then they can work with you based on what you show them. So this is kind of like a pre-setup for people to work with you. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in the future, I'm working, like I said, I got a book and I got a online course that I'm working on too. So, those would be like the things that will cost in the future. But, what I think is that it's just a blessing to be able to give, right? To be at this point to where I can actually offer this stuff for free. Like, that's the blessing, right? And even when you said, you purchased someone's product or whatever it was because, you knew their story, right? That was you passing on a blessing by supporting them.
Yeah, very true. I like that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for being on today.
Yeah, thank you for having me and just sharing this space. I've watched a few of your lives, and I love what you do, and I love the people that you bring on. So
really, I was easy on you today. With my humor, I'm easy on you. Yeah, right now, because when you said Andrew's garbage, I was like, is that why the shirt is on?
Wow. All right.
You know I
Let's see
love
how it
you.
is.
It's okay. It's okay. Aw. But
That's
yeah,
funny.
I'm gonna go register now, and I hope those who watch register too. There's nothing wrong with valuable information, and it's a free event. And I know people offer so many free events, but it's do you have this knowledge already? Then that's different. But if you don't, show up for it. If you don't know anything about it, to learn something new. Plus, it's from you. They don't, whoever you learned it from may not be sharing the same stuff, the strategies that you are. So I think it's important. So
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, definitely show up and share it with people too. It could be a college student right now who's going to come out in a bunch of debt.
yeah. Oh wow. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, that was me, right? That
It's
was
so
me coming out
true.
with a bunch of debt. So
One other idea before you go is to I don't know how, but yeah, to share this with schools as well. I think that's a great idea moving forward, to
yeah,
go and
that's
speak to schools. Yeah.
there is a
Colleges.
school. Yeah, there is a school in Minnesota that I've actually it was a mutual friend who was raising money for them. They're a charter school. And
Mm,
so I actually did get an introduction with their entire executive board. So that was it's pretty crazy to think too, because I got to tell them all the financial gaps I see in the education system. And I don't know necessarily. I know we talk about, what we lack in school with education, but I also had to ask myself, well, if we throw in financial literacy, what are we sacrificing then? Like, what are you taking out in order
mm-hmm.
to put that in there, or are you making school longer? I don't think anyone really wants
Yeah.
that, but that was really the question. So I don't know if it's necessarily like school is gonna answer that problem, but yeah, that's part of why Expanding Wallet is here, right? So we can
Mm,
fill that gap. And I don't know yet what I'm going to do with that school. The principal was just like, well, he's the executive director, so he's basically equivalent to a principal. But even he said
mm-hmm.
it's like he didn't think it was an accident that we crossed paths, and he's like, we're going to work together somehow in the future. So we'll see what we figure out together.
Because it's like you can either tell the students what they're in for before they even go to the college, or while they're in, you could be like, hey, this is what it really is. But to not tell them and them come out with an abundance of loan that they didn't know how interest works and things like that
Mm-hmm.
is very, that a lot causes homelessness, honestly. There's so
Yep.
many homeless people in the world, mental health and all of that. So I think that's really important work right there, because it starts with the small things, day-to-day life and daily activities. They all add up, relationships to finances to whatever else. So
Yeah,
thank you so
exactly.
much.
Thank you.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate it.
Bye for
All right.
now.
Bye.
Bye.